Okay. Now it's recording on my local computer. And I think now if you go and say you want to also record, that I think is a different setup altogether.
Then
So
it asks whether to record on the clouds. Then I
yes,
can say cloud.
yes. So I think you are now recording on the cloud. I am probably recording locally. I think.
Okay.
We'll try. Yeah.
So probably we lost all that from 1:45 to 3:30.
Mm, it might be still available through cloud. Maybe it'll come later. We'll see.
Let's
It's
see.
okay.
I
It
didn't
doesn't.
see it recording.
I before I exit, I noticed that we both had recording button on. I just
Oh,
didn't know.
really?
Yes, we both had the recording button on. At one point, I even mentioned to you, I think the signal was getting weak, and I said, if you decide not to record, it will save you some bandwidth on your end, because for recording means there's a feed going from your end. It's uploading a feed to wherever that needs to record live on the fly. So it's taking your bandwidth,
Well, that is the temple's bandwidth.
but it's slow. Uh, I mean, you have limited bandwidth to begin with.
Oh, now I get it, right? Because
It's
if
the
it
same,
exceeds 20 GB or whatever,
right,
then
right, right.
it is affected.
It's the same pipe. So using some of your pipe right now to send a feed to a remote location for the recording. But if you do a local recording, nothing travels through the network. So you're not taxing on your
Hmm.
network connectivity.
Hmm. You're
Um,
right.
so it's okay. I mean, we know what we did. And there were times when even in MABA classes where there were lost footage. Um,
Yeah.
it's not a big deal.
So let me go through. Well, let's continue reading,
Okay.
and then now we are starting at 3:45,
Yes.
and we'll see how far we can go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we still on schedule? Did we digress too much? So that way I can maybe. What was your original plan for today? You had some
The
certain amount.
original plan for today was to, read about Nikayas, learn
Okay.
about the canon, and then on. So because we don't want to begin with the Chakupalavattu, and this story already has been read so far.
Hmm.
We will go to an end somewhere, and then the rest I think I'll ask you to read.
Okay. Okay. So shall I continue?
Yeah,
Okay.
unless you want to switch to something else.
No, I mean I'll follow your directions. Whatever you want to do,
Yeah,
it's
it
fine
looks
with me.
like you are learning by me being here as we read.
Okay. So the paragraph I'm seeing is looking at right now is that where we stopped, as I have heard at the beginning of the sutta. Yes. Buddhaghosa tells us that after the councils, the Vinaya was entrusted to Pali and his people. Similarly, the Diga, Majjhima, Sanyukta, and Anguttara Nikayas were entrusted to Ananda, Sariputta, Mahakassapa, and Anuruddha, respectively, and their pupils. This was probably the beginning of the system of Bhanakas,
Oh,
Bhanakas,
reciters.
Bhanaka, Bhanakas, who shared out the recitation of the Dharma among themselves. We find it in commentaries references to Bhanakas of the first four Nikayas and to Jataka Bhanakas and Dhammapada Bhanakas. Although there seems to be only one reference to Kuddaka Bhanakas. Interesting. We may assume that there were Bhanakas of the other texts of the Kuddaka Nikaya. We may deduce from the fact that versions of one and the same sutta or utterance in different parts of the canon sometimes differ, that the Bhanakas responsible for the transmission of each text were quite independent and were not influenced by the traditions of the Bhanakas of other Nikayas. Interesting. So many interesting things.
Yeah,
This would explain why the various versions of Vangisa, Vangisa?
Vangis is the name of a monk.
Oh, Vangisa stanzas in the Samyukta Nikaya and the Theragatas do not entirely agree. Is there a disagreement between Samyukta Nikaya and Theragata? that
He
you know
said
of?
there is.
Okay,
Let's see, 54. Compare especially these.
okay.
So
That's a homework assignment, I guess.
not something I was completely aware of.
Hmm. The view of Barnacles were not confined to the text for whole recitation. They were responsible.
For whose recitation they were
Were not
responsible.
confined to the text for whose recitations they were responsible. They also had views
So
about the
their
book.
views were not taken. Only the text were, text they took literally, and out of respect they didn't change anything.
So is this recitation similar to the Brahminical period where people merely recited what was in the Vedas, loosely speaking?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
this had a different goal. They
Right,
had
right.
the transmission,
Mm,
so these ones to also preserve and to teach at the same time.
right, right.
But
Makes sense.
not so different.
Subtle difference, as you pointed out, right? So in Brahmanical period, it's just this is what the Lord God said, just follow,
Yeah,
blindly
exactly.
follow. But this
Right.
had but this has a different purpose. This is to preserve what was
Yeah.
said. So they are
So,
related, they are similar, but not exactly for the same objective, I guess.
yeah. So when they teach Metta Sutta, for example, they say practice this and also recite it daily. So it has different goals.
Mm,
Depends on
mm,
which Bhanaka tradition you belong to, and your teacher teach you Sanyutta Nikaya, so you are a Sanyutta Nikaya student.
mm,
But
mm.
this doesn't mean that you don't learn other things, but by memory you are reciting them regularly to make sure that you have not forgotten.
So do you also have a classification like that, specializing in some
No,
Barnaka tradition? No. Okay.
after it was written down, it stopped.
Ah, makes sense. Okay. They also had views about the books which were to be regarded as canonical. We read that the Diga Banakas put the Kuddaka Gantha into the Abhidhamma Pitaka, classifying the text in the following order: Jataka, Mahanidesa, Chulanidesa, Patisambhidam Damagga, Patisambhidamagga. Did I do it right?
Mhm.
Sutanipada, Dhammapada, Udana, Ituvattaka, Vimanavattu,
Itivuttaka.
Itivuttaka, Vimanavattu, Petavattu, Theragata, Therigata. So that's the same classification we found
Mhm.
in Pitaka.org. The Majjhima Banakas, however, put them in Suttanta Pitaka together with Charya Pitaka, the Apadana and Buddhavamsa. They
Buddha
thus
once.
Buddhavamsa. They thus omitted the Kuttaka path from the canon. We must assume that the Diga Banakas closed their list of Kuttaka Nikaya before these texts were added to it, while the Majjhima Banakas closed their list before the Kuttaka path was reckoned as being canonical. Ah, fascinating.
So there has been problems about when they closed it, so nobody can enter any more things saying, "Oh, this was also taught by the Buddha, so this should be in the canon."
Right, right,
And they were like, "Enough, enough. We are closing it. Don't bring anything new."
right, right. Now, okay, that's a fascinating thought
Yeah,
because I mean now this relates to Mahayanic teachings versus Theravadic teachings as well in certain respect, right?
it is because anybody can make something new
And
and
claim it
add
to
it
be,
in
yeah,
there.
right,
So that is why canonical and post-canonical distinction is there.
right.
Right, so this is canonical and this is post-canonical.
Post.
Even for Abhidhamma, they have questions like when did Abhidhamma all together start?
Mm, mm.
So,
The schools of Banakas also had their own views about the history of early Buddhism. Example, Diga Banaka said that the Bodhisattvas saw all four nimittas on the same day, while other Banakas had other views. The Majjhima Banakas gave a different reason for the Diga Banakas for Ananda's late arrival at the council. To judge from the way that Buddhaghosa speaks about them, the Banakas were still active in his day, but they seems not to exist today. At least
That's the answer of your question.
question. It is likely that the growth of the practice of writing and the increased use of MSS
Manuscripts,
ah, made
like
it
palm leaf manuscripts.
made it unnecessary to keep up the schools, which were dedicated to the recitation of complete Nikayas entrusted to their care. The Pali Vinaya Pitaka goes on to relate how, following a dispute over certain points of discipline, 100 years after the death of Buddha, a second council was held. In the presence of 700 bhikkhus, Revata asked the Thera Sabbakami
Yeah,
about the discipline. This council is described in the Vinaya as a Vinaya Sangiti. The Deepavamsa calls it a Dhamma Sangaha, and it is followed in this by Mahavamsa. The latter source adds that the 700 were Tipitakatta Tipitakatta Yada Yada
Pitaka Darins.
oh Tipitakatta
So
Yadari.
three Pitaka Darins.
Gotcha. Buddhaghosa expands the story and says that 700 Tipitaka they are
Pitaka
Tipitakadas
Daras.
Tipitakadas Tipitakadas were chosen to rehearse the Dhamma and the Vinaya, which they recited in their entireties. Before I forget, I had one question in the previous paragraph. I thought I saw a footnote that I would like to look at. Do you mind maybe one more paragraph, please?
Up here.
Ananda's late arrival, 57.
I,
What?
I kind of sense that you might want to read it. It's a sutta, I think it's SB 11.3, meaning not much given, only the source is given.
So they have.
Probably the commentary.
So Venerable Ananda came late to the council.
Well, they were seated, 499 were seated, and this monk was not yet enlightened. And not that he was late, but he was the last one to enter because he was not yet enlightened and do his
Okay,
work.
okay. Fair enough. That answers my
They say
question.
he entered through the keyhole
Hmm.
because of his psychic abilities.
All right. At some time after the second council, the dissident monks split off from the Theravadin and held their own great council, Mahasangiti. They consequently became known as Mahasangikas or Mahasangihikas.
Sangitikas,
Sanghika.
something to do with council. That was great because they have more
More
than
monks.
arahants, and so they are now Mahasangitikas. And because they hated that only 500 was chosen for the first one.
Politics.
So we are saying that we are those, the ones who did the great council.
Right.
Politics.
Politics, yes. During the following centuries, further splits occurred from both the Theravadin and the Mahasangikas until by the time the early chronicles, 18 sects were known and named. The earliest Pali source for the account.
He was so smart to cut down about few centuries in that one sentence.
Did I cut down something?
He was, I mean, the
Ah,
writer,
I jumped quickly.
right? And then begins his third council.
Probably he was also getting tired with the details. The
He would
earliest,
get lost in that.
right, the earliest Pali source for the account of the third council held during the reign of Asoka and not mentioned as such in the northern Buddhist sources is Deepavamsa. Okay, now I need to slow down. The earliest Pali source for the account of the third council held during the reign of Asoka and not mentioned as such in the northern Buddhist sources is the Deepavamsa. I'm still not following it. So Deepavamsa was not mentioned until the third council?
Deepa, Deepavansa, so the records about the third council that was held in during the Ashoka's time is not mentioned in northern Buddhist sources. We have to know what northern Buddhist sources are.
Okay.
The earliest
So
Pali source is the Deepavansa.
Deepavamsa. So
Only
Deepavamsa,
Deepavansa talks about the third council.
third council. Interesting. There we read that the council was held after the expulsion of certain heretics from the order. Moggaliputta presided over 1,000 bhikkhus, and during the course of the Sangiti, he recited the Kathavattu. The Mahavamsa adds the detail that the bhikkhus were all Tripitakas, Buddhaghosa's
Tepitakas.
Te-
Tepitakas.
Tripitaka. So these are Theravadins, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah.
Buddhaghosa states that they recited both the Dhamma and the Vinaya. Buddhaghosa gives an account of an assembly held in Sri Lanka soon after the introduction of Buddhism there. Reintroduction, probably, maybe. Uh,
Yeah.
when the early,
Oh, I'm sorry. My mouse ran.
it's okay. I mean, it's easy for me to see how, for a non Sri Lankan Buddhist person to read this and be confused, because in this sentence reads like Buddhism was introduced after the third.
Yeah.
So these facts are not factual. I mean, he probably has the right idea, but the way it's conveyed is wrong.
Yeah, when
Anyway,
he says soon after, there's a question.
right. The introduction of Buddhism there. When the elder Arita, Maha Arita preached the Vinaya, the Mahavamsa does
There
not
in that
mention.
council, Maharita,
It's a
well,
monk.
because Ananda was not there, and Maharita one is the so I think Maharita, this is actually Arahant Mahinda's time. Arita was ordained by Arahant Mahinda, so that I think he's correct in there because he was definitely talking about the third century here, but when he says soon after the introduction of Buddhism, that means the Arahant Mahinda's time because Arita is one of the monks who was ordained by Arahant Mahinda.
Okay. All right. Okay. So Buddhism was not in Sri Lanka at least until the third council or after the
Oh,
third
no,
council.
no, 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 no. So here it's talking about third council, but what he's talking about here is not after the third council.
Oh, after the Buddhism was introduced. Okay.
After the Buddhism was introduced, whenever it was introduced.
Okay.
So
Timeline doesn't matter here.
by looking
Timeline.
at Arita, yes, by looking at Arita, you know that
Hmm.
Buddhism was introduced at Arita's time. That
Hmm.
means Arahant Mahinda's time,
Okay.
not after the third century. Certainly not.
So let me remind myself. Mahinda
Oh, actually,
is,
you're right. Arahant Mahinda is the son of Ashoka.
yes, that's what I was gonna say.
So, yes, all these happened and Buddhism wasn't introduced, unofficially introduced. Buddhism must have been known, but not officially introduced that
Introduce.
way.
Right.
You're right. Yeah, yeah.
The Mahavamsa does not mention this assembly, but in the account of it given in the Saddhamma Sangaha, the recitation is said to have included both the Vinaya and Dhamma, and the assembly is specifically called the fourth assembly. And verses attributed to the
Purana,
Puranas.
Puranas, meaning ancient teachers.
Purana. Okay, Purana. Okay.
Yeah,
Are quoted which include the words Chatuttam Sangittam Katva. Chatut
Sangaham Katva,
Sangaham Katva. Chatuttam. Now, number 4. Chatuttam.
council, Done.
Fourth council. Okay, all right. I guessed one word. I couldn't figure out the rest.
Yeah.
Um, the Jinaka, see, these were the ones you pronounce them
Jinakala
so
Mali.
quickly. How do you pronounce it so quickly? I stumble
Oh,
and
I have heard this name before. I have read it.
okay.
This is why reading is so important. And reading it correctly is even more important.
Important. So next time you read it,
Yeah.
Jinakala Mali, Jinakala Mali.
Could be a book, well, it's a popular book, but Mali meaning a garland,
Hmm.
Jinakala meaning the time of the Buddha, the conqueror.
Jinakala Mali.
Yeah.
The Jinakala Mali.
Talking
Follow
about the Buddha's time.
Buddha's time. Follows Buddha Ghosha in stating that Maha Arita recited the Vinaya only. The verses found in the Saddhamma Sangaha is quoted by Buddha Ghosha without attribution to the Puranas.
Puranas.
Puranas. But the words of the Pada in question are different and make no mention of the Chatutta Sangaha. It
Hmm.
makes sense because, I mean, if the third Buddhist council has not happened, but by that point, Dipavans already existed or Mahavans already existed, how can someone know about the future occurrences? So I guess it makes sense from that perspective chronologically.
Yeah, also there was Arita has to be someone from Sri Lanka, and
Mm,
Arhant Mahinda said Buddhism is not established in the country
mm.
until someone from your country has been ordained and recited Vinaya in that country.
Okay,
So
okay.
for that, maybe they focused only on Vinaya.
Vinaya, okay. Hmm.
Anywhere Vinaya goes, Buddhism is going to stay longer.
Interesting.
Yeah.
If I ask you a question, what is in Vinaya that I haven't read? Oh, well, I haven't read much to begin with, but what is different in Vinaya than what's in Sutta, for example, or in
Oh,
Abhidhamma?
Vinaya has all the rules, but not in a way of a list of rules, but what led the Buddha to lay down the rule. And after that, when monks began finding alternatives, and the Buddha saying, no, don't do that. And that incident and all of that has been recorded there.
So is it similar to a Jataka Katha in a way? There's a backstory or why the rule came about, something along those lines?
Yeah, except there are no Jatakathas.
Right, right,
There
right.
can be instances where, a monk goes after a woman and the Buddha asking like, are you crazy? You did that last birth too. And
Mm,
you were trapped in that same woman.
mm,
And
mm,
the monk
mm,
feel ashamed because he kind of knows it, the way
mm,
the Buddha talks.
mm,
The Buddha is able to kind of sharply speak to the mind,
mm, mm, mm.
and it's addressed to that particular monk's case, so he can easily relate to it in such a way that he gives up the idea of indulging.
Okay, okay.
So
Hmm. The Deepa also states that during the reign of Vattagamini Abhaya, the monks who had previously remembered the Tripitaka and its commentary orally now wrote them down in books because of the threat posed by famine, war, and growing power of the newly established Abhayagiri Vihara, I guess. Yes, Vihara, which
yeah,
enjoyed the king's favor. The Mahavamsa also refers briefly to the writing down of the canon and the commentaries at this time. The Pujavaliya and Nikaya Sangraha, however, written in Ceylon the 13th and 14th century respectively, state that the writing down was a result of the holding of a council of 500 bhikkhus at the Aluvihara, Aloka Vihara, although neither source gives a number of to the council. Okay. The Jinakala Mali, however, entitles this section of its narrative Chatut Chatutta Sangita. Give me a second.
Sangiti Katha.
I'm still struggling. Chatutta Sangiti Katha. When you pronounce it, I'm merely re-
No,
repeating what you
you are
say.
getting really good at it. I see you can now, instead of, in some places, ch is to be understood,
Mm, mm.
yeah.
And the quotes the statement from the Sarasanga. What is Sarasanga? All the monks? Sarasangaha.
No, Sarasangaha, book,
Oh, it's another book. Okay.
book of essence. Sara means essence.
Written in the 13th and 14th century. That the Sangiti was.
Chatutta Dhamma Sangiti Sadisa.
I was going to give up.
Meaning, Sadisa means equal to the fourth Dhamma Sangiti.
Chatutta Dhamma Sangit. Sadisa. Okay, equal. Sadisa is equal to something
Yeah.
along those lines.
Yeah,
Okay.
that is how they report it.
Okay. So we have one Buddhist council soon after Buddha's death passing away. Then there's a second council, third council at
Asokas.
Asoka's time. Then there's a fourth council in Sri Lanka with Ati, Attika, sorry, Mahatika. And what this writer is arguing now is there has been other council-like things, but they are not recorded numerically. Is that what he's trying to get at?
The number of monks who attended, and because I think there were less arahants,
Mm, mm, mm.
and for them it was a matter of preserving Buddhism than the quantity,
Right.
and they
So,
managed to get the support of the king, without which they couldn't accomplish it.
so the thought of holding a Buddhist council now, from a traditional perspective, doesn't make sense because no arahant, well, at least no known arahants exist anymore. Am I right?
Oh
Or can
no,
you can still have a council?
what
You don't have to have a arahant anymore.
there were councils in Myanmar and in
Mm,
Sri Lanka
mm,
and in Thailand based on what arahants has preserved,
mm, mm,
because you have the records of what arahants have preserved.
mm,
That is the Tripitaka that is saved in Sri Lanka.
mm. But originally, the councils were held by arahants, right? That was the great divide to begin with, right? Only the arahants could attend the
Originally,
council, right?
yeah. But later times it was held by
Non-arahants.
not arahants.
Okay, okay. The Saddhamma Sangaha does not specifically call this the fifth council, as it might have been expected to do, but states Panchamang Dhamma Sangita Sadisam Eva Akasi.
Something equal to the fifth council was done.
Akasi, past tense. Kasi?
Yeah, Akasi, like
Kati,
from Karoti.
Karoti. Oh, ooh. Huh.
Eva
Of,
meaning indeed,
indeed.
Panchamang Dhammasangit Sadisan, something like fifth council, indeed done.
Happened. Okay. The writing down of Tripitaka and commentaries in the time of Vatagamini, the Sasana Vamsa, written in Burma in 1861 by Panyasami, but following earlier sources states that this should be called even by the name of the Fourth Council. It quotes as an authority for this statement. The Vinaya called Sarat Saratadipani, written by Sariputta.
It's a commentator's name.
This is not the same Sariputta. This is a
No,
different Sariputta.
yeah.
Okay.
This is the importance of reading. So there are later monks, commentators
Say under the
in this
same name.
context.
Mm.
You know,
probably in the 12th century, which states the council for writing the books was indeed the fourth council. Huh. The Sasana Vansa also states that the list of elders down to Siva,
Yeah,
Siva,
Steve is a monk.
which is found in the Vinaya, is the succession of elders down to those who assembled in the fourth council as recorded in books. The Deepavamsa, followed by Buddhaghosa and the Mahavamsa, tells how one of the missions sent out by Moggalliputta after the third council consists of Sona and Uttara, Sonaka and Uttara, who went to Swarnabhumi. Swarnabhumi is Thailand,
Yes,
Burma. No, not Burma. Swarnabhumi. I remember.
Mandala sort of is Burma, but Swarnabhumi is also the name of their airport. So Swarnabhumi is Thailand.
It is usually identified as Burma. The Burmese tradition, however, has
Oh, it's identified as Burma.
right. Swarnabhumi. Okay,
I thought it's Thailand.
I. That's what my first inclination was too, because I remember reading about Swarnabhumi somewhere.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. The Burmese tradition, however, has it that Buddhism was established in Burma even earlier than that. The Sasana Vansa tells of the Buddha actually visiting that country, a story doubtless invented to match his alleged visit to Ceylon. Okay, now he's really stretching stuff. Okay, the Sasana Vamsa tells of the Buddha actually visiting that country, a story doubtless invented to match
He says there's no doubt that it invented to match his alleged visits to Ceylon.
Ceylon. Okay. The later Burmese traditions even claim Buddhaghosa as a native of
Taton,
what is Taton.
the place somewhere in Burma then.
Okay, Taton. Okay. There's evidence for the existence of Buddhism in both Burmese and Siam by the 7th century AD, and a number of Buddhist texts were certainly known in Burma in the 8th century. 8th century, although it is not certain whether the whole Tripitaka was known there at that time. The Sasana Vansa refers to inscriptions stating that King Anuruddha established the religion in AD 1057 after conquering the town of Sudamma. Taton. There you go. Sudamma.
Hmm.
Uh, he had the Tripitaka bought from Ceylon and compared with that from Sudamma. Communication with Ceylon at this time is confirmed by a report in the Mahavamsa that King Vijayabahu, finding that there were not enough ordained monks in Ceylon to hold the Upasampada ceremony, asked Anuruddha to send monks to hold the ceremony and to recite the Tipitaka.
Let's see how far we have to go
Okay,
before we come to an end. Yeah, let's
not
read
that
all
far.
this
Yes, can
and then
finish it.
call it a day.
Okay. Mm, the following century, when Parakramabahu I became king, he found that Buddhism in Ceylon was still run by heresy.
Yeah, heresy.
Heresy. He accordingly called a council under Mahakasapa. This is a different Mahakasapa, definitely, I guess.
He...
Has to be. We're talking about Parakram Bahu's time.
We'll see.
And had them settle the points in dispute,
Yeah,
and
it's a different one.
thus managed to reconcile the three main sects in Ceylon at that time. We read in the Jinakala Mali that in AD 1430, the Sihala Sasana, Sihala Sasana was
That's
brought
Sinhalese Sasan.
to Siam, Not long after, in 1475,
1475 to 77. Like in 1505, Portuguese came to Sri Lanka.
right.
So that means there was ships and a lot of
Ah,
international travels going
right.
on.
Council was held in Siam, in which the three Pretakers were cleansed of scribes' errors by great elders appointed for the task, who were well versed in Tripitaka. As in the case of Burma, the traffic was not all one way. In 1756, Buddhism had declined to such a state in Ceylon that it became necessary to re-establish the Upasampada, and monks were invited from Siam to do this. They brought with them books of various sorts in the Dhamma and Vinaya, which were not extant in Ceylon. In 1802, Burmese monks were invited to Ceylon to introduce the Burmese Upasampada. Subsequently, Sinhalese monks went to Burma and studied the Abhidhamma, and on their return they brought back Pali books written by Burmese monks. What is Upasampada?
Oh, so that is, there are two states, Samanera and Upasampada monks. Samanera monk is a novice monk who keep 10 precepts, 10 novice precepts. And then Upasampada monks have to follow all the 227 rules, precepts. And it happens after, you know, you are presented in front of an assembly of monks, and then they put you in that position.
They ask questions. They
They do.
question. So it's an exam.
It's like an exam. You have your hands together like this. They say, okay, read Mano Pubbangama Dhamma, and you complete it.
Mhm.
So that means you have read the Dhammapada and remembered it. So
So
when
they.
they did that to me,
Mhm.
I was the one who had memorized most Dhammapada, and I mean all the Dhammapada
Mhm.
at that time.
Mhm.
So they put me as the first one.
What do you mean by first one? What
So
is
there
the?
were about 8 or 11 monks to receive full ordination,
Mhm.
and there were elderly monks, and I was the first one to be fully ordained.
How long of a process is this? 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 days, five
It's
days?
about you have to go to Kandy
Uh,
from south, so you hire a bus, and then you are dressed in a certain way, and that, including from the time of you getting dressed, it takes about 2 hours for the ceremony to process. But asking questions only takes 15 minutes.
so they don't ask a lot of questions. They ask few questions here and there,
They
random
ask you
questions,
questions, ask you to chant certain sutras.
random sutras
Well, there is a assigned section there,
section.
yeah,
Okay.
where you are supposed to know.
So it's not comprehensive. I thought it might be a comprehensive exam of some sort, meaning they're gonna ask
No,
you
from
anything and you.
anywhere.
Yeah,
No, it's not like that.
I see.
But then there were monks. I remember they asked questions like, "Who's your teacher?" And you have to say, in so and so village, so and so Korala, so and so Grama Seva Vasama. I am the student of so and so monk.
Mm.
And they ask, "What have you memorized?" They say nothing. And who ordained you? And again, they say, "I was ordained because my teacher wanted somebody to look after the temple,
Mm.
and I'm so old I can't memorize anything." But they still give him Upasampada, because Upasampada is nothing about you what you memorize. It's about you keeping your
Vinaya,
precept, yeah, Vinaya closely.
200, 200 odd, 220 something you mentioned,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Okay. So it's more self-discipline than anything else.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, you can say those who are giving Upasampada are not virtuous, but it's not about them. It's about you.
So I can Upasampada if I keep all the Vinaya precepts.
Yeah,
It doesn't have to be a monk
yeah, but it's a monastic thing.
thing. Okay. Towards the end of the 19th century, King Ming Dong Ming, whose tutor Panyasami had written the Sasanavansa only a few years before, convened a fifth council where, under the presidency of the king, eminent monks and teachers. Oh, there's a comma missing maybe. Where, under the presidency of the king, eminent monks and teachers read or recited the sacred texts to restore the best readings. The complete text of the Tripitaka was engraved on 729 stone slabs. Wow. Around
Yeah.
the Kutadao Pagoda. I gotta take a reference. I gotta look that up. At least look at one picture.
Well, I have been to Burma. Have you?
No,
It's
not
a
yet.
thing. You can climb up these pagodas and see the sunset.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Stone
it's
slab.
like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, these are huge structures.
This
You
seems
also
to.
have these structures in Myanmar, each representing something,
Hmm.
arahant or something.
Have you seen those slabs that's mentioned in the textbook?
Oh,
Stone
slabs?
slabs.
I
They.
have not seen that.
Huh. Okay. Now, I was curious about those 729 stone
Oh,
slabs. So the
I
whole
think these are
Tripitaka.
the ones. These are the ones. Yeah, 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 yeah. So it's under these. They didn't want them to be exposed in. So yeah, I have been to this place actually, and look at this.
That might be it.
This is it.
Okay.
At that time, I was able to read Burmese.
Looks similar to Sinhalese, roundish script at least.
Yeah,
Okay, nice. It's like the Quran.
yeah,
I remember somewhere the Quran is written in a stone slab of some sort.
yeah. That's because any religion they wanted some it to preserve as
Preserve,
long
right,
as it could.
right.
Yeah,
That's the
and
best
it
way to
worked.
preserve.
Oh, look at that!
It,
That Zoom recording is available.
oh, awesome. We didn't lose anything there. Awesome.
Yeah.
Very good. So, what happened exactly? I have no idea.
Oops. If they want to see that. Yeah. So we didn't lose it.
No, 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 we did not.
Oh, right. Good. And then here's the chat messages. Oh, good, good. Yeah,
Nice.
sound recording works.
So, we didn't lose anything. Awesome.
Yeah.
I gotta stop my habit of looking up. I have that habit of looking up for whatever the reason, and I wonder. I'm not seeing anything up there. I'm just looking up,
Oh, it's a way people get into, you know.
thinking mode. But it looks weird on a recording. I'm looking like up there, like my eyes are rolled
Oh,
backward.
you don't know. Everybody does that. Only those who can think like me, who just look like an idiot on the screen.
Anyway, the dates on the slabs indicate that the text had probably already been carved before the council was held and were then corrected in the light of any discussion. Okay, wow. Fascinating history. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever learn about these things if we didn't have this discussion today. I mean, why would I?
Right. If I tell you to read, I kind
I
of doubt,
I'll probably read, but I'm not gonna get into it. I'm like, okay, first Buddhist Council. I'm gonna read like how I would read a technical textbook. I mean, I'm gonna read the first sentence, last
Yeah.
sentence. That's what this paragraph is talking about. Next sentence.
Right.
Anyway, the Mandalay slabs were re-inked and copied for the Sixth Council, which was held in Rangoon in 54-56 to mark the 2500th anniversary of the Buddha's birth. So that 250, okay, roughly 50 years ago, yes. According to the Oriental tradition of chronology, We are informed that the draft edition of the Tripitaka commentaries and the sub-commentaries based upon the Fifth Council edition, which had been revisited after the comparison with texts from other countries, was prepared by a body of scholars. This was then checked and re-edited by a large number of Burmese Mahatheras and simultaneously by a small number of Sinhalese monks. The final version was decided upon, not without argument, by I'm sorry, couldn't help myself
No,
laughing.
no, true. You know how you can imagine.
By boards. Yeah, this
What year was this? This is 1954. I think this is
54
when Ananda Maitreya, like monks,
went
and
to Burma.
yeah, went to Burma.
Okay. By boards of reviewers composed of Burmese, Sinhalese, and Thai monks. The new editions were then ready for printing. The task of the council spread over 2 years was ceremonial recitation and formal confirmation of the new editions. Although invited, no representative of Cambodia or Laos was able to attend the meeting for scrutinizing the new editions. Why? There was a war going on at that
I'm
time?
sure there were murders and a lot of monks were murdered at some point in Cambodia. I know
But
it because my colleague is from Cambodia.
I see. But the Cambodians and Laosians are reported to have given their assent to the decisions arrived by the representatives of the other countries. While the vast majority of monks present at the Sixth Council were Burmese, recognition was given to the other countries by appointing their representatives as chairmen for the various sessions. It is not inappropriate to talk of Burmese or Siamese or Sinhalese tradition for the transmission of the particular text, and the differences which we find between the readings of the manuscripts belonging to the various traditions must go back to the councils which have been held from time to time in the different countries. Hmm. The value of each tradition will depend upon the care with which evidence for variant readings was sifted and the criteria which were adopted as the basis of the decisions which were made. We have, of course, no way of discovering this for the earliest councils. The way in which the preliminary work for the Sixth Council was carried out should have resulted in an
Eclectic,
it became a
eclectic
eclectic the tradition or the hierarchical tradition, right?
means
Yeah.
combining all of them.
Edition of the canon and the commentaries, incorporating the best readings from all Oriental editions. It is probable, however, that the Chatusangaya
That is
Sangayana
the CD that I showed you. It's called the Sixth Council, Chatta Sangayana edition.
Chatusangayana edition
Yeah,
is based predominantly upon the Burmese tradition, but is not possible to certain about this without carrying out a detailed comparison between that edition and the one inscribed after the Fifth Council. So many scholarly things people can do, I guess. The
yeah.
way in which the Upasampada was reintroduced from one Buddhist country to into another and books were bought by visiting monks had led to a situation where the traditions of each country have become to some extent interwoven. It is sometimes possible to detect the effect which this has had. When, for example, variant readings in a Sinhalese manuscript depend upon a similarity in shape of a two aksaras which resembles each other in the Burmese script but not in the singular syllabary. Interesting. Then we have a clear indication that at some time a Burmese manuscript has been transliterated into Sinhalese characters. Huh. Bediakuru, is that what he's trying to talk about?
So transliteration is it's exactly. Are you talking about transliteration?
No, so Sinhalese manuscripts depend upon the similarity in shape of two aksharas.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
The export of MSA sometimes results in the fact that the text which has been lost in the country of its origin may be found safely preserved for centuries in another country. In more modern times, the ease of communication has led to a situation where it can become very easy to cross fertilization. It's easy for cross fertilization of traditions to take place. The editions of the second European edition of the Sutta Nipata draw attention to the fact that they have ignored the Siamese edition of that text because it had been influenced by the first European edition. It is nevertheless possible that manuscripts are still extant in libraries in Ceylon, Burma, and Thailand, which are based upon a tradition which predates and therefore perhaps preserves readings older than and rejected by more recent councils and editions. Although not so well documented as the Theravadian tradition, it must be assumed that the older traditions followed a similar pattern of recitation and validation as canonical by assemblies of monks. The council had held by the Mahasangikas after the schism which followed the Second Council has already been mentioned. The alternative name of the sect suggests that the story of their holding a council is correct, although it is possible that its occurrence was merely deduced by the Theravadins, who, observing differences between the canons of the two sects, assumed that their rivals would, like themselves, need the authority of the council to authenticate their canon. Oh, I don't think I can pronounce that.
Yun Xiang.
How do you pronounce it? Silent
Yun
H?
Xiang came to Sri Lanka, right? So he's a traveler from China.
Again, how did you pronounce it?
Oh, Hyun Xiang.
Hyun Xiang. So H
Yeah,
is H. Hyun Xiang. Okay.
yeah, S is silent.
Swang Sang. Swang Sang? Swang Sang? Okay.
It's a great traveler. You know, if you go here, so he's a world traveler, very famous. Is that
Oh, yes. Swang Xiang.
yeah,
Okay. Okay, I remember.
yeah,
Just this past week when we visited, well, not past week, couple of weeks ago when we visited Maba,
yeah,
Master was talking about him. Swang
yeah,
Xiang.
Hyun Xiang. Many names.
Just don't know how to pronounce it, I guess. Swang
He died
Sang.
in 664.
Right. He was the lone survivor. Only two monks managed to come to India in the first place, and only he went back, or something along those lines.
Yeah, very interesting.
Mm. Great sacrifice. Very
Yeah.
dedicated.
So we are coming to the end.
Yes. Meng Xiang records a story that under Kanishka, 500 elders subjected the Buddhist text to a revision and wrote commentaries upon them. These commentaries were then deposited in a stupa. This is designated in the Kanjur as the Third Council. If the story is true, it is presumably refers to the Sarvastivadins who were strong in Kashmir, where the council was held. It is, however, possible that the story was an invention made up
Hmm.
direct imitation of the account of the earlier councils. The fact that one of the commentaries alleged to have been composed at this council actually exists does not prove the existence of a council. Oh, nice. Very strong.
Yeah. It's, people make up things.
Right.
We don't know.
We don't know which one is right, which one is wrong. I
Yeah.
understand. I think that's the end.
Yeah. So read the next one
Okay.
and don't read back the one we read.
Okay.
And you see, it's talking about the canon.
Yes.
Uh, so next chapter
It's a
is
short chapter, it seems.
it's a short chapter, and that will be enough.
Okay. I will
Yeah.
do that. I can do that. You want me to?
So
Okay.
right. So
So I think
and because you were curious about what is in Vinaya, maybe you can skim through the next one also.
Yes, I'll do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So I will take note of what I gave you to read.
Is it kind of an assignment of sort?
Um, Somewhat like a homework.
Okay. Do I need to produce something?
No,
Okay.
you will bring questions.
Okay. Fair enough. That I can do.
Yeah. So because you have to kind of read the story of the email I sent to you. Which story? The Chakupalavattu story.
Mm. Yes.
You may not have read it yet, right?
I skimmed through it. I did not fully read it because I wasn't sure what your intent for me was to begin
Okay,
with.
so we want to first be. I want you to first be able to read it in Pali and tell me what's happened.
Okay.
So
Without,
we will do it together.
am I allowed to like use a dictionary or something to translate
Oh
at
yes,
least the way I can try to do it?
yes.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So identify the verb and subjects
Try to break it down.
based on nominative singular case
Okay.
or whatever the case, and see how many other subjects or subject related words are put in nominative case,
Okay.
and then you know it's all about this same person. And then what is in accusative case, it's all about related to the object of the sentence.
Okay.
So you first find the verb and then find the subject and anything associated with the subject, and then anything else to translate. So
Okay. Okay. I can do that.
we will be doing it together, and for you, you just need to try it
Yes.
for your practice.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. So looks like 5 p.m. This time is good to stop.
Yeah, I think so. I think
Yeah.
it's a good time to stop. I think we clocked about 4 hours today.
Yeah. 9:30 to 11:08, and then 11:30 to 1:05, and then 1:45 to 3:30,
Right.
3:45 to 4:47.
Right. So roughly four hours, maybe slightly over 4 hours. So we have
That's okay.
what? That
We
I
will.
think is sufficient.
Yeah. Next Tuesday around the same time, we will meet.
Yes, Bante.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
So enjoy
All right.
reading.
Thank you so much. I
You're
appreciate all
welcome.
your help,
Of course. Good Sarnai.
Sarnai.